she was good, she was very, very good. But when she was bad, she was Veronica. I apologize if this doesn't make sense, but I'm freaked out and have no idea how to explain this. My coworker and I were driving back from dinner to the place we were staying at. We had driven this route a handful of times and were very familiar with the surrounding area. It was a 7-minute drive from the restaurant to where we were staying. Okay, so we left the restaurant and had a straight drive for about 2 miles. No turns until we had to take a right turn into the parking area of the property where we were staying. As we approached the hotel, the tall Courtyard by Marriott sign was visible, as was the building. We were a block away from the turn, and then we just suddenly weren't. We were all of a sudden driving on a highway, about to take the exit on the right. It was immediately apparent, and I said to my coworker, "Wait, something is wrong here." And he replied, "Yeah, what the hell just happened? We were just about to turn into the parking area." I told him to pull over, and I looked up on maps where we were. The map showed we were 20 minutes away in the opposite way we had come from. It was physically impossible, and the time on the clock was still the same as it was when we were next to the hotel. I don't understand, and neither does he, and he doesn't want to tell anyone because it sounds so crazy. We teleported 20 minutes away. It was the single most disorienting feeling I have ever experienced. But now, after that, I feel like everyone in my life has just changed. Everyone feels so distant. I can't shake the feeling that something is still really very off. Please, help. When I was 16, I took an SAT prep class to improve my score and get into a good college. The class was pretty boring, but I met the most interesting girl in the class. She was thin, fairly short, with light brown hair and green eyes. She always wore a green headband, which I thought was cute. Her name was Connie. We hit it off immediately and spent most of the class whispering to each other side by side at our desks. I spent about 3 weeks sitting next to her talking during the class. When the class was over, we exchanged IM handles so we could keep in touch. This was in the early 2000s. About a year passed, and we continued talking online. We got to know each other pretty well, but we lived on completely different sides of the city, and it was quite a drive to visit each other, so being the young teens we were, we never actually got together. Eventually, I worked up the courage to ask her out for dinner. I set our date at a restaurant located between the both of us so we wouldn't have to drive too far. The time for our date rolled around, and I headed to the restaurant to meet her. I walked in and saw her sitting in a booth with 2 older individuals at the far side of the establishment. She looked exactly like she did in the class. Thin, light brown hair, green eyes, and she was wearing her signature green headband. I approached her and said hello. I gave her a hug and sat down next to her in the booth. I assumed these 2 older individuals across from us were her parents. Odd, I thought, but maybe they were there to chaperone. I could tell immediately something was wrong. The 2 older individuals looked very confused, surprised, almost bewildered. The look on Connie's face was also one of perplexity. Eventually she said, "Who are you?" I was shocked. I said, I'm Jason. Remember we set up a date for tonight? I assume these are your parents. It's very nice to meet you." And I reached out my hand to shake her parents' hands. They didn't return my handshake. Instead, they simply looked at their daughter and said, "Oh, did you forget to tell us, Sarah?" "Sarah?" I said. You told me your name was Connie." She looked absolutely puzzled and said, "Sorry, you must have me confused with someone else." "Oh, My mistake, I replied, then scratched my head and headed out of the restaurant to my car. I was embarrassed. Maybe she just didn't want to go out with me, I thought. She could have at least just said no instead of leading me on this charade. Defeated and humiliated, I decided to just head home. When I opened the door to my car, I heard a voice behind me say, "Hey, Jason." I turned around. It was a tall, light blonde-haired woman with a large round face and blue eyes. Do I know you?" I said. "It's me, Connie. We had a date planned, remember? Where are you going?" she said. We went inside and had dinner. She was definitely Connie. She remembered all our previous conversations over the past year, but she looked nothing like the girl I met in class. When I asked her why she stopped wearing her green headband, she had no recollection of ever wearing or even owning this type of headband. I can't explain it. This happened in Sanford, Florida in 2021 by Lake Monroe at the Veteran Memorial there, which has a lot of places to sit. It was around 2 a.m. or so, and me and my friend were sitting near a lake enjoying the full moon. We were sober, and we don't do drugs at all. We spoke about all sorts of things that night, and how we tend to see a lot of crazy things in that particular location after 12 a.m., So we are sitting there, and I look up at the moon, and I notice a dark spot on the full moon, and I thought it was just a random dark cloud. I pointed it out to my friend, and at this point we are both looking up. But this dark spot on the moon starts to spread, and it looks like cracks. The moon was cracking, and big pieces of the moon started to separate from it. We were both staring in disbelief, trying to make sense of what was happening. It felt like it should not be happening. It felt wrong, like a glitch. We were not scared, just confused. It felt off and very strange because the magnitude of what was happening never hit us. We keep looking up, and the moon is completely fractured and separated, all within 4 minutes or so. As we keep looking up, we see everything that happened being put in reverse, just like if someone had hit a reverse button to all that had happened. We were seeing the moon get put back together. All this happened within 2 minutes. So the whole ordeal only took about 6 to 7 minutes or so. After this happened, we looked at each other and came to the conclusion that we had just witnessed a glitch in the Matrix, and we were the only ones that saw it. No one online in our area was talking about it, and to this day that was the most insane thing I have ever seen. And now looking back at it, I have no idea what we did after that whole ordeal. It's like it's veiled or blocked from our memory. My friend feels the same way. I wonder if anyone else saw it. I know this story is going to sound weird and crazy, but hear me out. I'm not too familiar with this subreddit, but a friend of mine who's always talking about metaphysics, Twilight Zone, simulation type stuff loves this sub and keeps telling me to post this. In fact, no doubt he'll read this. Hey, Zane. Anyways, here's my story. 2 weeks ago, I was about to get ready for a party at 6. Just before I started getting ready, one of my friends messaged me, super excited because a boy she's had a crush on for the last 4 years finally asked her out, and he was coming with her to the party. While I was texting her back, my younger brother walked into my room and asked if I could drive him to his friend's house, which I agreed to do. Then I went up to the bathroom to have a shower and do my makeup. So I got in the shower, but when I went to wash my hair, I realized that my conditioner was finished. I was pretty ticked off because I'd only bought it a couple of days beforehand, and it's an expensive brand. My younger sister always uses up my things, so I knew she'd used it all. She'd also trashed the bathroom, leaving water everywhere and her dirty towel on the floor. I was pissed off and was about to get out of the shower in order to tell her off and get some more conditioner. But as I went to get out, I realized at the last second that she'd kicked the grippy mat we have at the bottom of our shower top up. Our shower tub is super slippery without the grip mat. So as I went to step out, my foot slipped and I fell with my neck down onto the edge of my tub. Time seemed to slow down in my head, and I remember my last thought was, "Wow, this is how I die? How stupid." But here's the thing. At the moment of impact, I woke up in a start back in my bed. I know it sounds stupid and cheesy like something from a dumb Netflix show, but there's literally no other way to describe what happened. I was lying in bed right before I got up to shower the first time, but I don't remember falling asleep. And the thing is, I've been a lucid dreamer for the last 5 years or so, and if this was a dream, it was way more vivid than anything I've ever experienced. What weirded me out, though, was that the exact same friend who texted me the first time messaged me after I woke up to tell me that the boy she had a crush on had asked another girl out, and she was pretty bummed about it and didn't want to come to the party. I was weirded out that there was some similarity between that and the dream, but didn't think much of it at first. As I went to reply, my younger brother came in to ask if I would take him to his friend's house. All the blood drained from my face. He just stood in the doorway looking confused and asked me what was wrong. I rushed into the bathroom, feeling like I was losing my fucking mind, and went to check the conditioner bottle. I know this sounds completely crazy, but the bottle was finished just like before, and the grip mat was kicked up. At that point, I went to lie back down in bed and texted my friends to tell them that I wouldn't be going to the party. Sorry if my story's no good, I'm not much of a writer. But at least now you can stop telling me to post this here. Zane. I'm hesitant to tell this story. No one believes it, not even my husband who saw the whole thing, but here we go. My neighbors directly across the street from me, they're married and expecting a baby. The wife is a tiny blonde woman, very Caucasian, very tiny build. We wave to each other daily and yell salutations across the street. She goes into labor and they leave for the hospital. A week later, I see the car has returned, so I bake some cookies to take over and congratulate them. Another day or two goes by, and I see a thick, brunette lady outside with a baby, and I wave, assuming it's a relative that's come to help with the newborn. A few more days pass, and I see the husband outside with the brunette and the baby, so I take the cookies over. It's her. It's the wife. Same name, same personality, and same demeanor, except she's now a thick, kind of tall, brunette Pacific Islander. The husband doesn't acknowledge any difference. She talks to me and treats me the way she always has, but it's a totally different person. My husband noticed as well. We made some jokes about him wife-swapping at the hospital, but since he can't wrap his brain around it, he starts to believe that she's always been this person, even though he clearly remembers her teeny and blonde. I feel like everyone has lost their minds. It's been almost 2 years since that shift, and she's still a thick, tall brunette, and then I feel like maybe I've lost my mind. My only consolation is that my husband remembers it too, if only vaguely. Update 1. So I showed the picture I found of her to my husband last night. He's a little bit of a mess about it. The man is not a conspiracy guy at all, but he remembered her. He started asking some questions and tossing around ideas about what could have happened. I convinced him to go to the church this morning and attend their service. I spoke briefly with the pastor and said my neighbor had recommended that I attend. He was grateful she was sending people his way, even though, get this, she hadn't attended since she had the baby. She's apparently changed churches to one a little closer when she gave birth, so I don't know where to go next except for putting some feelers out in the neighborhood and finding an excuse to hang out with her. Update 2. I'm sorry that took so long. I didn't want to update until I had spoken directly to my neighbor. So, I endured the heat all week and spent way too much on flowers to plant in an attempt to run into my neighbors. The old lady next door doesn't remember the neighbor's wife having been blonde, but her middle-aged daughter does. She said, "Yeah, that was a couple years ago. I don't know why she went so dark. I thought it would wash her out." When I pointed out that it wouldn't wash her out because her complexion is tan now, she looked confused and said that maybe she had been tanning because she did look darker. I pushed it a little further and asked if she also seemed taller, but she seemed stuck on the fact that the very Caucasian blonde woman had gotten tan enough for such dark hair to look natural. She gave me several reasons, but didn't seem convinced either. I also spoke to the changed lady's next-door neighbor and mentioned her having blonde hair. Neither he nor his wife remember her ever being blonde. They both agreed she had dark hair on move-in day. Yesterday, I finally cornered changed neighbor lady outside. She pulled up with groceries, and I offered to help her carry them with her. I started talking about the church and how I had spoken with the pastor. She said some really nice stuff about the church, but also that she needed a church closer, that's why she had switched. When I pointed out that her new church was actually further away, she said she had never actually measured it, but it seemed closer. I pointed out that her old church was in our town and her new church is in the next town over, and she said the back roads must just make it seem shorter. Some red flags popped up here because the back roads around here are long, windy roads that circle around our town and pass by all the farmland. It doesn't ever make things quicker. It's a nicer drive, sure, but it always adds a good chunk to drive time. Also, the new church is in the middle of town, 2 streets over from Main Street, so if you take the back roads, you actually have to circle back to get on the main roads to get to it anyway. It would be much more convenient to take a direct route using the town roads that connect the 2 towns. It's almost a straight shot from the middle of our town to the next town over. I don't know why that bothered me, but it did. After a little while of small talk, I brought up the hair. I said that I was trying to go blonde to hide some gray that I have coming in, and she had any tips. She laughed and said the last time she was blonde she was in high school, and it was a mess, so she didn't recommend it. I pointed out that she was blonde right before having her baby, and she got really weird, almost defensive, and said she hadn't. She'd only tried to go blonde that one time in high school, and it turned orange, so she dyed it back immediately. I told her I chalked it up to pregnancy brain because she was definitely blonde while she was pregnant. She ended the conversation shortly after and thanked me for my help, but you could tell she was annoyed with me. So guys, not super sure what I've learned other than the girl next door to me, old lady's daughter, and I are going to have another chat. She made me feel like she remembered, but she couldn't wrap her head around it. I'm going back to the church on Sunday to poke around and talk to some more people. Any more ideas? Hey folks, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard and you haven't subscribed already, please do subscribe and hit the like button, as they're both very helpful to my growth here on YouTube. I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers, and I know I can do it with your help. If you have a suggestion or simply want to say hello, please leave a comment down below. I love to hear what y'all have to say. I have had COVID for the past 8 days or so my voice might sound a little sick in some of these, and that's also why it's so short. But I'm better on the mend, so I'm sorry for anyone who has had COVID or has COVID. It's awful. But anyway, if you have a story of your own you'd like to share and possibly have read on the channel, send it to me at veronica45stories@gmail.com. Link is also in the description, as are other ways to support the channel if you feel so inclined. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it beyond measure. And until next time, be good.